Hello, my name is Brian Levant, and I'm the director and one of the 33 writers of the Flintstones. And I'm a very fortunate person because for 20 months of my life, I got to work with Steven Spielberg's Amblin Productions, George Lucas's Industrial Light and Magic, and Jim Henson's Creature Shop to bring Bedrock and the Flintstone characters to life. And it was just a great experience. And so let's sit down and I'll tell you everything I can remember that should be heard by the general public anyways. So, here we are in our rock quarry. One of the most amazing things about the Flintstones was that the entire film, with the exception of one helicopter shot that ILM did, was done within a 30-mile radius of the intersection of Sunset and Vine. And that's what they call the zone. And this is about just 5-6 miles north of Universal, a cement quarry. And in there, we built Slate Company, and there you see Kyle MacLachlan and Halle Berry, and now we're inside, and we see a mat of the quarry in the background, and here comes one of my favorite jokes, when Halle exhales, a real-life Flintstone joke, and very simple to do, a lot of fun to think of. Now we're coming into the main title, and I'll try and take you through every trick we used in reproducing, almost shot for shot, the original main title. So there's John on top of a CG dinosaur with CG rock sliding down. The bird is a puppet from the Henson Creature Shop, and now that's John on a crane arm, John's feet on a plastic brontosaurus's back, and then he flies off the dinosaur's tail in the air and into the car, which he's really being pulled out of. We drive up to the house, and there's CG Dino, CG Kitty, and off to the drive-in with CG animals. Tar Wars is the coming attraction. There's our Bronto crane neck, 22 feet long, Puppet Dino, CG Dino, and now into the longest CG shot ever made at this point. Through the Universal logo into real clouds with the CG title. The real cloud shot by ILM in a jet, matched with the CG pterodactyl from ILM with real people in the cabin there that was shot against a giant blue screen on stage 44. Now, through real clouds and CG clouds into a plate shot at Lake Powell in Arizona with CG Nessies and CG water moving around them. Up the hill, right into here, all real, dissolved to a model, a giant model filling a soundstage at ILM, to the big model of Bedrock with CG pterodactyl, CG smoke coming out of the volcano, CG real cars moving, and a lot of swimming pools in Bedrock. And now we're at Bronson Canyon, and you TV fans will remember the cave they're coming out of right now was the exit to the Bat Cave. So once again, all in Los Angeles. And there's John and Rick Moranis, and singing the Twitch, which was a big Flintstone song, which I was totally ignorant of in our first meeting with Rosie O'Donnell. She said, well, you have to put the Twitch in it. And we said, what's a Twitch? And Rosie starts singing it. And as soon as I heard it, we tracked it down. We loved it. And not only do we hear it in its original form here, but later by the B-52s rechristened for the film the BC-52s. All right. This is shot out at Vasquez Rocks. There they are in the back there. Shooting in the other side, you'll see the Flintstones neighborhood. And the cars, I mean, this is as close a representation to a Flintstone car as could be done through much trial and error, manufactured by Michael Lantieri, the Academy Award-winning physical effects supervisor from Jurassic Park, and our art department headed by William Sandell. Now, Bill seeks out the largest scale productions that he can find, and among his credits are Total Recall, RoboCop. He likes to do huge pictures, and here his plate was very full, as not only did he get to design and bring to life something that he loved, but to work in a medium that this is a guy, he's a rock hound. He spends his summers in the desert. Oh, there, Flintstone breaks. Everyone always said, you're going to do Flintstone breaks, where he just sticks his heel. Of course we are. Michael Lantieri brought in dirt, I mean very, very soft dirt, and it wasn't John's heels, actually, but someone did stick their heels in that dirt, which was kind of pre-plowed and set. and there they are taking off. The cars there were like golf cart motors in there, and they were controlled by controls on the hands. Here we are coming around, and you see the size of the production of the Flintstones that we built their entire street here at the base of Vasquez Rocks, actually in the overflow parking lot. And this is my favorite, the stone flyer and kids playing basketball. That's a pretty good shot. This guy made it every time. A lobster lawnmower from the Creature Shop in London. And if you ever see the TV version, John uses his automatic garage door opener. I love the Flintstone house. Bill Sandell, it used to be a solid color, and then one day he took his kid to get a turtle, and the rocks that they had for the turtle's cage were striated in color, just like what the Flintstones house is now. And so after he'd painted, he showed me the rock and said, "This is what it should be." And of course, here we go, Dino. Dino is a puppet there. And then on this shot here, you'll see some great CG animation of how they match John's face. And there we're back to the puppet. And here we go, puppet to CG, and Michael Landieri pulling the cord on the doggy door, just making room for the CG element to go in. And you see how lightweight everything was. That Elizabeth, if it really was a wood door, I don't think she could have picked that up. Fred's going to sit in his Barca lounger. But everything was made, the furniture, the houses, was an industrial foam, which was then carved into shape, and they would spray it over just very light window screen with with little bracing, just to give it the roundness so they could keep moving it in a circle. And great dollhouse there. And Pebbles, Melanie and Elaine, wonderful kids who we found in a soap opera. And here comes one of John's favorite takes of mine. And here we go. Very, very honeymooners-esque scene with an assist from our Pigosaurus, one of my favorites. And that's a great expression. And that was Anthony Asbury was the main puppeteer, not only on the Pigosaurus there, but also on Dino and the Dictabird. So this is, you'll see John's watch. I don't know, maybe we needed a close-up here to sell it a little better. But that's actually a Hamilstone electric, just like the Men in Black wear. Let's see, you see all the things in the kitchen there, the Quaker Oats and minestrone soup we had there, and a faux Campbell's label. Look at John's outfit, taking what was animated and turning it into real. The costumes were a real challenge to try and make them look really like you would expect to come to life, and at the same time be practical, that you'd be able to wear it, that it fits right. And there's a lot of experimentation. For instance, the tie that we finally ended up not with a straight blue tie like Fred has in the cartoons, but it's a snakeskin pattern. And we tried everything in between before finally settling on that, on kind of the best realization of that. What would they really have made a tie out of that had the length and the color? And there's downtown Bedrock. Oh, it's beautiful. Built in the quarry there. Marshy fields in green, the Bank of America, our public transportation. Probably one too many foot running jokes, but how do you resist when you're doing the Flintstones? And there, I forget the name of that fish. That's an actual prehistoric fish done by the Henson Creature Shop with some rod removal afterward to hide the motor that turned the fins. And there she is, Rosie O'Donnell. Who knew that she would become, one of the top entertainers in America? At this time, she had just right after A League of Their Own and Sleepless in Seattle, and Rosie, perhaps a different choice for Betty Rubble. I can credit my wife with the original idea that her being a comedian and wanting to be and perfect being Wilma's sidekick. Look how much fun she's having doing this. A real Flintstones fan. She can, like I said, she's the one who brought us the Twitch originally. She knew every song from every episode and the guest stars and what the name of the show was that Anne Margrock was in. And she was just so great and so much fun. And Rosie was on the rise here, and we're very lucky to have had her. And now that we're even talking about doing another one, really hope we get to have her back. Ah, there you go. Marno and Helena Sigurdsson played Bamm-Bamm here in quite a feral state. Their father worked for Hughes Electronics, and he was in Southern California doing research on defense systems for Iceland, their native country, and the boys came to an open call, as did the Silver Twins, the Pebbles. And as soon as I saw them, I said, "Oh, that's Bamm-Bamm." You don't really see it in this shot, but very round, kind of Nordic faces, and with great smiles and very strong. I mean, their father's a powerful man, and these little guys, we'd have weights to see how strong the kids were, and these guys, they're naturals, and they wanted to show those muscles. And the Polaroid camera goes off in a rubber club. And here we go with a pretty good stunt double. and we're off to the races. So here we're coming into a montage that was very difficult to shoot. That's the mastodon sink or hose, whatever you want to call it, is really my favorite creature. The fact that it was practical and it had great warmth from the first time we saw it in a maquette form, and in the drawings it just had beautiful eyes. And, stunt doubles jumping out a window, a little pyrocell door, and that's a crane is really lifting those people, and we paint out the wire. And here a good piece of timing as Rick catches the ball and is fired by one of these stunt devices that God knows why anyone would step on them. I love the train. This is the only shot we saw it in. And a lot of things. There's so many things that we're in that we'll try and point out as we go. But all the little details that you'd love to have lingered on, but that's not the way you really can make movies. That at the Rubble's house, everything was made from shells. And we just love the way our street looked at night in the Bolorama with the animated pin in it. And the things you see like the phone booths and things, there's such great attention to detail that every score sheet in the bowling alley really has been chiseled. The lamps over the score tables are being turtle shells, and once again we get double duty out of our lobster there.
Strike to win, and you do it. Is the earth flat?
Irwin 88 Keys and Richard Mall, one of the stars of Night Court. Here we go. Good puppet work by the Henson Group. We got triple duty out of the frog, just kept repainting the skin. Take a horn off, pull it off. Here comes the Twinkle Toes Flintstone Bowling. John was lifted by a crane and wearing a flying harness, and then the wires were painted out. And great gag executed by our property master, and master indeed, Russell Bobbitt, of pins that explode, I guess made of pyrocell, very loosely compacted, so when they're hit, bam! Maybe augmented with a little powder explosion maybe as well. Lava juice. We had written brew or beer, but William Hanna, one of the creators of the Flintstones, corrected us, saying that they only drank lava juice. One of the thrills of doing the Flintstones was meeting and having part of the film William Hanna and Joseph Barbera, who in 1960 had created the cartoon series, which was really their follow-up and from Huckleberry Hound, which had been their follow-up from Rough and Ready, which had followed about 20 years at MGM as the creators of Tom and Jerry. So by the time the Flintstones was made, over 30 years from the time it debuted on ABC as the first prime time cartoon series, and lasted, I think they did 166 episodes. And actually, the main title, as we know it now, was the syndication main title. For the first 2 seasons, there was a different one, which perhaps we can shed a little more light on if we ever do a sequel and look for a new beginning here. Richard Mull always got some good suds when he howled like that. What's great about the acting of the Flintstones is how people really threw themselves into it, and no one ever questioned it. John, Rick, everyone, they jumped in with both feet and committed to do some very strange things. And look at John here, the wonderful expressions, and when you talk about the Flintstones, you really are talking about a Stone Age version of the Honeymooners, or as Hanna-Barbera referred to it, really that's a Laurel and Hardy comedy team. And one of the highlights of the Honeymooners always, for me, was when Alice's mother would come to visit and go toe-to-toe with Ralph. And here we do our version of it with none other than Elizabeth Taylor. Elizabeth Taylor had not been in a feature film in America in 14 years, although she'd done a number of TV movies, and had more recently turned her sights more towards working with her AIDS Foundation and her perfume lines as well. And it was just a great thought to have her as part of the Flintstones. And look at how she stands toe-to-toe, her and John scowling at each other, doing fat jokes. It's the way Elizabeth Taylor as you've never seen her before. And I got to tell you, the first day that she came to rehearsal, she was just wearing black blue jeans and a T-shirt and a hat, no makeup, and she was just incredibly beautiful. They always say her violet eyes, they really are unique, and she was really, really cool about the whole thing, and I think she was having fun being an actor again, and that it was a cool thing. She made it much more of a cool thing by her very presence, and I can't say enough about her. And we actually the film premiered in New York, was a benefit for the Elizabeth Taylor AIDS Foundation, and was very successful in that regard. And a number of the children whom the charity benefits attended, and it was a really nice thing because of her involvement in both the film and her charity. I was saying before, one of the great pleasures in the film, one of many pleasures in the film, was for the first time bringing Hanna-Barbera over across the freeway to Universal Studios to see what we'd done for the first time, and picking them up in front of Amblin in the finished Barney mobile, Barney's car, the double pencil car, as I hope you've noticed watching this. And driving over to the stages and showing them the homes in progress, and soundstage after soundstage built within various stages of production. The houses, the furniture, just stage after stage filled with people carving and painting and foaming, and it was so exciting. And my favorite thing happened when we showed them the bathroom, and there was the toilet, and Mr. Hanna said to me, "Where's the toilet paper?" And luckily for me, I turned to Russell Bobbitt, our prop man, I said, "Get me a roll of birch bark." And that made Mr. Hanna very happy, and a good joke. So you can see Kyle MacLachlan, I think, was one of the great casting choices in the film. We met with a lot of guys. I think the runners-up probably were Christopher Reeve and David Duchovny. But Kyle, had kind of a different vibe coming from David Lynch, and once again broadened the scope of the people who came together from all these different places. Rick Moranis, from SCTV and Family Films, and John Goodman, who did Roseanne every week, yes, but did a lot of very edgy films. His long association with the Coen brothers, and his really interesting interpretation of Babe Ruth. a very serious actor, Rosie O'Donnell, Elizabeth Perkins, who I think most people would consider a dramatic actress, although she was so great and funny and big. Just bringing together all these different kinds of people, and Halle Berry, who I don't think expected us to choose her, but she was just so cool and so much sexier, really, and so much more different than anyone else that we'd read.
If Fred scores the highest on that test, I'll have to hire someone.
We made, I believe, over 400 costumes for the film. Notice, how really exactly the pearls, Wilma's dress, Betty's dress, the bow, how they match their real-life counterparts. And look at the incredible, actually a doll that spun around back there with Pebbles and Bamm-Bamm.
Cooped up inside some swank office all day, kissing the big shot's feet? Not Fred Flintstone.
You see that water back there? When we originally scouted the quarry, that's where we were going to build everything. But what happened was the LA Dam is just on the other side, and we had a lot of rain that year. And as we started building in the quarry, all of a sudden the water started to rise, and we kept getting pushed further and further up. But the way it actually all worked out, to have the lake in the background in this scene, and to push different elements finally together so they related much more cleanly, it all turned out to be to our advantage, strangely enough. I don't think I'd ever wondered what it would be like to work in a rock quarry, but we all found out what it was like to work in a rock quarry. If you remember from 5th grade, the higher you go, the colder you get, and for some reason, the lower you go, the hotter it gets. So normally in Los Angeles, when you have in June and July and August, when we were out there, when you'd have a 90-degree day, we'd have a 120-degree day down there. And it was very hard. Number one, just because, all day you're baking in the sun, it all reflects all this white rock surface. You got actors who aren't wearing shoes, hundreds of them in some cases, and you're covered with a film of sunscreen and dust, and it was very physically taxing on everybody. But still, we would find the energy to play some volleyball at lunch and throw a ball around, but it really, really was hot. Then I saw a film, and they were shooting in the summer, and they had the misters over the extras, and they had the lunch tents were air conditioned. We were like at Boy Scout camp, and they were at the Four Seasons. Now, another cartoon device like the dollar sign smoke ring up front, the thought bubbles, and I can't tell you the amount of time that was spent trying to get the right kind of Flintstone cartoony thought bubble, and how it should come on, and how many different little puffs of smoke should lead to the bubble itself. And all that is a work of ILM. Mark DePay was our effects supervisor, and Mark went on to direct Spawn for New Line, very successful. And ILM are an incredible group of people. And whenever I say I did a film with ILM, they say, "Oh yeah, what's it like up there?" And I'd say, "I don't know. I never got to go up to San Francisco." We would talk to them on the phone. They would come down to see us. We would get tapes every day. And I always wanted to say, "Well, I'll come up there," but I never even got to see the place in all that time. But once again, maybe if we do a sequel.
Fred Flintstone. Barney, quick. What's my name? Fred Flintstone.
Here we saved, especially for this spot, a yabba dabba dabba doo, and John's on a flying rig there, which raises and lowers him, allows him to click his heels like that, and then we simply paint out the wires. Who knew you could do things like that? Back to the neighborhood. It's so great. All the little details that go into making a film, the newspapers and the design of the newspaper, and here getting it to sink into the lawn, and the decision. I thought it was a lot of fun to have whenever we saw a representation of Fred, that he looked like how he did in the cartoon show. So a very clever device, the Flintstone alarm clock, and there's some Anastone pain reliever right behind him. It's too bad that you didn't see a lot of the things very clearly in the room, a lot of the cosmetics A lot of the things in the medicine cabinet. There we had a great version of American Gothic, a couple standing in front of their cave, and for some reason we weren't able to stick that in. There's a puppet Dino, but still pretty good with the tongue. Our rodent razor, and this isn't a CG shot of Dino. That's a puppet where the head goes out, followed by someone manipulating just a tail. And I love in the refrigerator there, you see the bird's eye, frozen vegetables. And here's another good example of how we use puppetry and CG. Puppet Dino goes under the table, but emerges in a CG shot. There are Mastodon, Hose, Shower, whatever you want to call him. He's just beautiful. I don't know how they did this, how you make an egg inside out and put the stuff inside of it. But we did it, and I like that there's almost something in every frame in this shot. Everywhere you look in the house, there's something that we created just to make you feel like you are in a real Flintstone universe. The Flintstones cost a relatively modest $50 million, and our shooting schedule, in order to stay to a budget like that, we limited it to 66 days altogether, and then a couple days afterward with a smaller second unit. And of that schedule, half the time we spent outdoors. I think we spent 2 weeks at Vasquez Rocks at the Flintstones street. And I think we spent about 22, 23 days out here in the quarry.
Hey, Barn.
Yeah, Fred?
Spot me a couple bucks for lunch. I'm a little short.
You're right, Fred.
Also shot in the quarry in our downtown Bedrock sets were the Rock Donald's commercials that accompanied our opening. We had Happy Meals, fries that came in Flintstone containers, and drinks. They gave away Rock Donald's t-shirts and glass mugs. It was great. I love the inside of the Slate Company here. Very modern. If you look on the walls, you'll get a glimpse of an Andy Warhol sort of a Cambone soup suite there, and our giant kind of Calder-esque mobile, and there you see Racasso's Guernica on the wall there. This is a disc, so you can go back and take another look. It's very clever. The set was just beautiful, built on 2 stories, on stage 27 at Universal, the big stage with the pit, and there's the Racasso, and I can't say enough about the work of Rosemary Brandenburg in this film, our set decorator and designer, because there was not one object in this film that could actually be bought. Everything was made. The desk, the blotter, the chisels, the paper clip, the dictabird, the furniture.
Am I interrupting?
Actually, I think one pair of earrings that Hallie wore were actually store-bought. Other than that, everything was either man-made or of nature.
If you want me.
The Flintstones began pre-production in December of 1992. Our producer, Bruce Cohn, and Colin Wilson and I began meeting with department heads, and once our key people were in place, we began formal pre-production, culminating in the beginning of rehearsals like May 2nd, 1993, and we began shooting 2 weeks later, which finished up including the second unit right before Labor Day of that year. And the post-production was slow, we had, I believe, 66 CG shots, which I guess 5 years ago is a lot, and today there are films with 5 and 6 times that number that are done on the same sort of schedule.
Take a memo. Cliff, let's play golf.
Another example coming up of great puppeteering by the Henson Creature Shop of London, and that was one of the coolest things, was getting to work with this company, with these people. The first time that I met with Brian Henson. I was just amazed at how well he understood the performance and how things were to be built to perform certain functions. And you just saw hundreds of years of an art that flowed through his veins. And they just have incredible talent there. Jamie Currier, John Stevens, who ran the show for us. And we were, when we entered the design phase for the creatures, we started with sketches. And what always came across in the Hensons' work was a warmth and a sweetness that began in the eyes of every creature they did. Most creature shops make creatures. These guys make people that you love who may be creatures. And we progressed from the initial drawings and approving things and trying different things, different ways of showing a prehistoric bird, for instance. And then we progressed to making maquettes from which full-scale models were done in clay, and then they mold those and make the skins and paint the skins and insert hundreds of pieces of animatronics, motors, and then they're controlled by the Henson control system, which is a series of different buttons and levers and things that you squeeze in order to perform many, many different functions, depending on the beast. For instance, the dictabird, his beak was solid, but the muscles that surrounded it were very flexible, and they could get a great deal of movement out of them. His eyes, moving the eyeball itself and opening and closing of the lids, constantly keeping things in motion, keeping them alive. Their puppeteers were very skillful. There was a lot of problems with Dino, strangely enough. We had originally designed Dino to be people in suits. This was a measure built on economy, for one thing, and rather than spend the X number of dollars that it would have cost to achieve this in CGI. At the time, we didn't have it, but as soon as we began filming and saw how it was working, it was obvious that we had to try a different way, and ended up with more of the combination, for instance, of Dino, of seeing him in close-up in an animatronic puppet, sometimes assisted by someone with a tail, or even someone wearing his front paws, and in a wide shot where you see him full body, that he would be CG'd.
2 words. Something exciting must have happened up there.
You don't want to know, Barn. Believe me.
Sure I do, Fred.
There was always a problem for instance, with Dino, in how do you take that which is animated? We know what a dinosaur looks like. We all saw Jurassic Park. But how do you take that drawing, that representation of a dinosaur, and turn it into a living, breathing creature? And the answer really was to imbue him with the personality that Hanna-Barbera intended. They said, don't refer to him as a dinosaur in the script. Refer to him as a dog. And therein was the key to his behavior. And we made tapes of dogs, of frisky dogs, frisky larger dogs, jumping and running, very animated with their eyes, their heads, their tongues, their tails. And that was a kind of energy that we wanted from Dino, and it was very hard to achieve. I think Elizabeth Taylor just looks great in this scene, and she's having a hoot. Doing both sides of the comedy turn, I thought she was just so much fun. And I love the party hats, the made from skins, and I might say there was no real fur used in the making of the Flintstones. Great take by Elizabeth, huh? We had great fun when we designed props like the briefcase. Well, trying to find a signature piece always, a signature painting, a Gucci briefcase. When we make the albums, when we saw the stereo earlier there, and I don't know if you could really see the albums, that it was Bruce Springsteen, Bone to Run, and Barbra Streisand's Stony End, and making those details that everywhere you look is a visual pun, is something, making the telephones so they look exactly like the horn and rock, and what is the telephone cord being the vine, that everywhere you look in the production, you would see something unusual and something with a Flintstone signature to it. This is one of my favorite CG shots in the movie, where very unexpectedly, Dino appears, and right behind him is Gene Vanderbilt, the original voice of Wilma. You know, you can't say enough about Rick and John and how they portrayed two lifelong friends. They've been friends since, as Fred says, the first time he went through the 5th grade. And it's very interesting that a couple weeks into the production of the film, people stopped saying, "Go get John" and "Go get Rick." They started calling them the boys, which I always found interesting, because the boys is what they called Laurel and Hardy. You know, that they really had in people's minds become a team. And you know, when you see them there together and you look at these shots and you see, really, John's a very large man and Rick is a normal-sized man. And they just loved each other and loved working with each other, and their comedy complemented each other. Jurassic Park, one of my favorites. And you notice as currency, we use sand dollars. There's Rock Donald's, hey, 19 dozen sold.
Wilma, that is beautiful.
Now, this is Marshy Fields, and the jewelry and the cases is just great. A lot of it made of bone and ivory, and there's great fun in designing the fancier clothes because you could go a little gaudier with the materials. You notice that on every there's a tag on every piece of merchandise, living models in the store. One of my favorite sets, a conference room with the giant half-petrified tree. And see Kyle's portable phone there, just like the receiver on a real phone. And Dan Florek, best known for LA Law and Law and Order, as Mr. Slate with his signature glasses. Another great work suit for Fred. The one that came out on all the toys that he wore on his first day to work, the red tie and the zebra pattern, we found in my Flintstones paper doll set, strangely enough. I have a lot of Flintstone toys. At the time we started making the film, I had a collection of about 80 pieces, and I think it really impressed Mr. Spielberg when I met the interview for this project, that I was somebody who was kind of steeped in the lore and kind of fascinated by the images that it created. I have to say that now my Flintstone collection is probably up over 800 pieces. Happy to say that in this scene right there is Mr. William Hanna, 53 years, partnered with Joseph Barbera, and what a thrill it was to have him in the boardroom. He asked to keep his wardrobe, I guess just to put in his closet. I don't know if he'd wear it to work or not, but it was great having him there, and we wanted his partner, Mr. Barbera, to be in this scene as well, but he was out of town doing one of the things that he does. Very, very busy men for men in their mid-80s at the time, and still going strong 4 years later. And Mr. Barbera appears later in the film.
Excuse me, Mrs. Rubble.
Yes?
There seems to be a slight problem with your credit card.
Really? And what would that be?
It's no damn good.
Everything in Flintstones is parody. That's an Abraca stroller, as you see, and the one that Betty uses with Bamm-Bamm is taken from another one. You know, we looked for signature items and tried to just, how do they look in stone? You know, the park bench, you know, how does it become immediately identifiable and possible to make? But and keep it somewhat of a natural shape without losing that which defines it. I thought I think it was Marty Klein, a production illustrator, who came up with the idea of using a giant brontosaurus skull in Jurassic Park for the kids to play on. This pterodactyl scene was actually added in post. We shot everyone running, and then this is actually not a CG shot, but traditional cartoon animation of the shadow, followed by a lovely drop of over 500 pounds of pterodactyl dung.
A whole bunch. Sincerely yours, Frederick J. Flintstone.
The voice of the Dictabird is Harvey Korman, who was a Flintstones regular for his voice of the Great Gazoo, among others. And it was great for me to go into the studio and get to know him and spend a few days creating with him. You know, I was a huge fan of his from the Carol Burnett Show and the work he does with Mel Brooks. And once again, it was adding a traditional element, but somebody whose sketch comedy work on Carol Burnett just shows a really fertile comedy mind and a little bent too. And another great addition to the cast. If you notice in this scene, if you can get past Hallie, you see things like the Flintstones took place, and it was a modern version of a Stone Age family circa 1960. But still, for the movie, we wanted to continue to add to the oeuvre. So the telephone, for instance, the push-button office-style phone fits in, and we have computers with real mice as the mouse.
Isn't she beautiful? My family.
I've heard so much about you. Well,
I think one of the things that made Flintstones kind of a different experience for everybody was the fact that once the cast was assembled, with the help of Nancy Nair, our casting director, that we really did everything we could to keep everybody in the loop, to show them the world we were building as it evolved. And to, you know, it's like, I think too often people walk onto a movie their first day and actors, well, someone's decided what they're wearing, where they live, what color and what kind of car they drive. And we wanted everybody not to feel weird in this skin when they walked onto the set the first day. So we were always running people through the art department and showing where we were with the creatures. And so everybody was familiar with it, but it was always the first time we'd open up a set, it was always something special. And it created such a fun energy on the set, the fact that you really got to work in the Flintstones house. And speaking of the Flintstones house, I mentioned that we shot the Flintstones neighborhood at Vasquez State Park. There's Rolling Rock beer, is Fred and Barney's favorite. And we constructed the houses, but before we could even build the houses out at Vasquez, we had to lay it out and build it in miniature and really get it down before they came in and had to begin grading the lots so they were flat so we could build on them. And then the houses were built on sound stages at the studio and then transferred piece by piece and constructed in, as I said, what was the overflow parking lot for the park. And those are all natural rock formations, and what they say is that those are the big plates that when they rumble, that's what causes earthquakes in California. At some point, they had just popped right out of the ground. Vasquez State Park was open to the public all while we were filming, and when word started to filter out and there were various pictures and papers in the Santa Clarita Valley outside Los Angeles showing them in progress, people began to show up to see the houses, and overall, the park service told us that over 400,000 people had visited the sets. And the park was open, as I said, while we were shooting. So there's always a couple hundred people perched on the rocks somewhere around us, watching us. And once in a while they'd applaud. It was like doing dinner theater 14 hours a day. It used to be that you'd shoot a film and then you would edit it and test it and polish it up before you release it. But with so many computer-generated shots, it necessitated that you edit pieces of the film long before you've even seen it all put together from start to finish. And what the demand is basically for a finished cut. So this was something new for me, and along with Kent Beta, who I worked with for the first time of many times, and many times more, I hope, on the Flintstones, that Kent, who had done things like Spinal Tap and Inner Space, and had a great background in comedy and in effects. And the thing about editors, they just don't edit. They really, in the movie business, run post-production. And it's a big job, especially on this film. And we were all learning about CG technology because up until this time, that this was technology that was controlled by very few. And certainly, you didn't see much of it in the comedy world. I hope as we go along, I'm not saying and having too many long pauses for you. I'm doing my best, but I do enjoy talking about the Flintstones. Because once again, for me, it's a culmination of using like everything that I'd ever learned about making movies and design and to challenge myself by going into new areas with CG technology and to really take it to another level with sound design and music. Those are the kind of things that turn you into a better filmmaker, and that was certainly the end result of my association.
Stone insists on being so conscientious. Perhaps we can give Fred something to take his mind off work.
Coming up is the first piece of music by the B or BC 52s in the film. And that was a pretty cool thing. And I got to direct the video of them performing the upcoming song. I guess it's no secret. It's the Flintstone theme. When it was actually released by MCA Records as part of the Flintstone soundtrack package, Variety said that this was the first novelty hit of the SoundScan era, whatever that means. There is my favorite car, the LeSabre-Tooth 5000, which is fashioned from petrified wood and was great fun to design as it was making all the cars. And this one in particular took cars that I love, like the grill of like a 57 Corvette, and redoing that in vertebrae and taking the fin from the Delarue from the film Topper, which I believe was 1937. And Chaz Butcher is responsible for most of the cars. I went to the Peterson Auto Museum in Los Angeles last year. I was taking my son, and all of a sudden you get off the escalator on the 5th floor, and there's Fred's car. It was very unexpected, but I think it shows that we did a good job in taking something that existed only as a cartoon and making it real, making it tangible, fleshing it out, if you will. Originally, we had a Bronto crane drop the second story on, but we couldn't afford it, so we just popped it on. And I don't know if you notice it as much as you would had we really seen it dropped on. A great trick there that was worked out by my cinema photographer, Dean Cundy, who also did things like Jurassic Park in a long association with Bob Zemeckis, Back to the Future, 1, 2, and 3, and Death Becomes Her, which... So Dean was very, very experienced with effects, but just the simple things like the wall that Barney went into was raised so that the camera saw the top of it, but not the bottom, and the bottom was high enough so the car just went right under it, and then we blasted car parts with an air ram and some dust, and we created the explosion. And we didn't know how we were going to do it, and Dean just looked at it and came up with it. And that's the advantage of someone with his experience and comedy sensibility. He's also a key player in things like Casper and directed the Rick Moranis in Honey, We Shrunk Ourselves. And I believe if they make a Casper sequel, I heard Dean's going to be behind the wheel at that one. So I've lost a chance to work with him again because he's another director. I'm fighting him for jobs now. What's the Dick the Bird yawn here? I think that's so simple and so real. And when you see something almost that effortless, you forget how many people it actually takes to operate them. So let me see if I can run it down for you. You get Once the puppet's delivered and the puppeteer spent some time learning how to manipulate him, and there were several different versions of him for when he walked on a rod puppet, and I'll point out later where he flies, and one where he's just on his perch here, and then a couple of stunt ones as well. So the package that comes with is one technician who works the controls and repairs them and keeps everything running. You have, in this case, 3 puppeteers. One puppeteer operating eyes, beak, facial muscles, and another one doing wings, and another one doing feet. Now, then, in order to keep them looking right, you have someone who just does makeup and hair for the bird, which means that they come in and they're always putting in new feathers or Vaseline to make his tongue look wet. And there is Cavern on the Green, or Stonehenge, in this beautiful ILM miniature with little Flintstone cars going up the hill. Here we are at Cavern on the Green, and they're arriving in a very fancy Flintstone car. Is none other than Mr. Joseph Barbera of Hanna-Barbera. And now the great fun in doing a rock band in the Flintstones is you see a Stoneway piano, and their horns are horns. And trying to do, there's the Gibstone rather, flying a guitar. And if you get a shot of the bass player here, you can see that it's a version of Paul McCartney's old Hofner bass. And actually, Fred Schneider's microphone is a wireless mic. Don't ask me how they do that in Flintstone technology, but they do. And John just doesn't he move great? And you know, he's always a big man. You know, he's so graceful and he runs so fast. I'm really surprised he became an actor and not a pro football player. A lot of interesting people contributed to working with the B-52s. Record producers Don Was and Bernard Edwards, long ago of Chic. You know, I'd really never worked with rock people up close and personal, and it's a very different process than ours, and we're on strict deadlines and stuff, and they're musicians. And I think we really came up with a really interesting album that covered Flintstone or cave themes in a variety of styles.
Barney!
Cavern on the Green was built on stage 27 with a 360 cyc, a sunset cyc that we made, you know, with smoking volcanoes that you can see in some shots. And they're right there behind Rick's shoulder. And the sets on stage were, other than Cavern on the Green, the entire inside of the office complex, as well as the Flintstone and Rubble's house, the adoption agency, which was then reworked for other uses. And there is a Flintstone version of TV with Lorraine Newman as a CNN, the Cave News Network reporter. And, you know, there's a lot of question. How do you do TV on the Flintstones? Is it animated? Is it birds acting out the news or whatever? And finally we came out with a very distorted black and white kind of picture that we played with different video effects and used a very distorted crystalline screen to make it look even more primitive.
That busboy is your best friend.
Best friend? I lost my best friend the day I became an executive. He's just jealous of my hard-earned success.
Scale is a very important thing. You see the size of that lobster that just walked by. That was a real lobster. And whenever you see like fruits and vegetables and sandwiches, they were all man-made, or the eggs, but they are huge, oversized things. And the way they baked giant loaves of bread for sandwiches and got the largest green onions and tomatoes from hydroponic gardeners in Colorado who were, you know, making these huge mutant vegetables. It all contributed to make everything once again feel natural and real.
Oh, finally, it all makes sense.
You don't believe this, do you?
Are you calling my husband a liar?
Now this has gone far.
Coming up is one of my favorite jokes that we came up with, and it wasn't in the script, and we didn't come up with it on stage. We came up with it in post-production. Coming up, you'll see how Barney hits Fred, and Fred staggers for a bit and then falls down. What Mark Mangini did, our sound editor, was he put in the bird sounds. And after hearing the bird sounds, we decided, why not have birds flying around and bubbles like a cartoon effect, but instead of birds, use a pterodactyl, which we had already modeled for the airplane scene at the beginning of the film. And once you have something in the computer, it's easy to make more of them. And Mark DePay did a great job of having them circle and fall and dive as Fred fell out of frame. So as you look in the house and you see all the things on every shelf and in every nook and cranny to really make it look lived in, it's hard to believe that we could really pull all this together in the amount of time that we did. From the time that we started making drawings of every object, I'd go through 50, 60 a day, and we would try and once again find those identifiable features. And then they would literally either, like for instance on some lamps, they would foam, about 8-inch thick around a real lamp, and then carve it just so you had the general shape underneath and the substance, or they would just start from foam itself. And this is from every coffee mug that we show, every box of Pebbles cereal, the newspapers, the telephones, rugs on the wall, the carpets on the floor. It's all built in, as well as outside the windows, all those giant dunes and things that we had on location. Now that we're inside, that you see them out back, they were carved the same way. And there, the Barco lounger. That's really my favorite piece of furniture. So when we redecorated the house, when Fred got a promotion and got some money, the only piece of furniture we kept was the Barco lounger. And you could just see Fred fighting. No, this stays. Everything else can go. But that's my chair.
And I don't need this television.
Don't you love the widescreen TV? And here's a nice piece of puppetry coming up here where we cut away to Dino and the mastodon. And Dino, there you see his legs and his head, but it's not a CG shot. It's all puppetry, as is the Pigosaurus there.
It's gonna take you hours to clean up this mess.
Now, this was the toughest CG shot to get Dino to move right and just to get the fluidity for some reason. Just that gait and the fact that he had the bowl in his mouth made him assume a certain posture. And when you do a CG shot, and you all we did was leave room in there for Dino to walk out and get in the car, and maybe we should have even had the car bounce a little bit when he got in, but we didn't. Just the number of steps, it was maybe 40, 50 different what ILM would call takes, attempts to get the motion right, attempts to make the shadow link up right with the body in accordance with the way everyone else is lit. A very difficult, time-consuming, and often frustrating process. But when it works beautifully, and I'll be happy to show you as we go along, some of the Dino shots that were just so simple and were nailed right away, and other motions and actions were difficult to pin down. And still, I get a little bit of I wish we could have done that better when I see some things. But you try and enjoy it on the whole. The reason that we went with twins on both Pebbles and Bamm-Bamm, because using kids who were, as they were, 5 years old, you get a very limited number of hours a day with them. And also, as with any 5-year-old, some days you just can't get them to do anything. And at least we'd have another one there waiting. And it's traditional in Hollywood. Even in Parenthood, Ron Howard had this big party sequence that had to go on for days. And so every kid at the party, all the guests, were all twins so he could shoot whenever he wanted to. Great piece of puppetry, isn't it, by the Hensons, our brontosaurus neck, over 22 feet long. And we actually changed the color scheme at one point. But you can't see it, so we wanted there to be all different colors of Brontos.
Listen to me, I'm your friend. No, cut it out. And you're a rotten smoker.
As you see here, we have Neanderthals mixed in among the working class of Bedrock society, and that was accomplished very simply. A prosthetic on their head, long wigs, and what we actually did was cast as Neanderthals the hairiest men we could find.
They made a fool out of me.
Yeah, look what they had to
The Flintstones opened up on the Memorial Day weekend of 1994 and grossed a then record $37.1 million, which has been exceeded each year since then. I think there are a number of factors that contributed to such a great response from the public, and certainly, in my mind, one of the keys was the fact that we had a teaser trailer attached to Jurassic Park, which, of course, is the all-time box office champ. And this was devised by executive producer Kathleen Kennedy, and it was so simple and so perfect that I think it really created the right feeling and created a response from the audience that immediately that they wanted to see it. And what she proposed and what was executed was a very simple follow the bouncing ball sing-along of the Flintstone theme. And, as the ball or rock would bounce and occasionally break up a few letters, we actually found out all the words that you didn't know. Where people always sing the song, there's always da 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 da. That's they're a modern Stone Age family. And da 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 da, which is through the courtesy of Fred's 2 feet. And buoyed with this knowledge and the fact that it was another take on the dinosaurs that people were already in the theater to see, I think it did us a great deal of good. Plus, there was an amazing marketing campaign. The poster that the studio under Perry Katz produced with the same artist who did the Indiana Jones poster was just great and really captured everybody's best expression. And just it was a fun poster to look at in the way they just took little things from the exterior. So you really got a feel for the film and what it looked like just by the one sheet. Another of the highlights for me and really for my family was going to London for a royal premiere of the film about 2 months after it opened domestically. And you go to the theater and people were lined up for blocks waiting for all the stars of the film. Rosie, who was doing Grease on Broadway at the time, flew all night to come and be a part of it. And Kyle with his girlfriend Linda Evangelista, and everybody was there. And so was Prince Charles and his cousin King Constantine of Greece. And I didn't get to sit very near Prince Charles. I got to shook his hand. We had a receiving line, and he, talked to everybody. Real nice, very personable fella, and shorter than I thought. And Rosie, who sat next to him, said he laughed harder than she could ever believe, and he laughed hardest when the pterodactyl takes a big dump on Bedrock. After the film, which was wildly received, they had this big square that they had turned very bedrocky, and had this great party. And John got up on stage and with the band there and sang Ray Charles songs for about a half hour. And Sylvester Stallone was there. I guess he must have been filming Judge Dredd at the time. And supermodels Richard Branson, Brian May from Queen, all with their kids. And it was really a great night, and something the likes of which I'll probably never experience again. So there's Jonathan Winters. I knew Jonathan back when I was producing Mork and Mindy, and he played Mork and Mindy's child, Mirth, on Ork, aged in reverse. I was able to twist his arm to come out and do this little part for us. And John Goodman is a huge fan of Jonathan Winters, and really had a good time. And he's so inventive and fun, and just that face. There's no one like him. Actually, I am the voice of the Pigosaurus, and if you don't believe me, Flintstone! Ah! That hurts. I did the voices for a couple of the characters, and Dino was an interesting combination of using Mark Mangini, who is a very facile voice man, besides being a brilliant sound effects editor, and actually using recordings made by Mel Blanc for Dino back in 1960 to 66, and we created like a bank of different Dino sounds so we could cut them together and get him to do different things now. Unfortunately, we neglected to give him credit for this, which was rectified on the video cassette and all subsequent versions, as requested by his estate, which we're very happy to do. And sorry for the oversight. Getting back to the audition process, for Wilma, we saw a lot of people, but no one really seemed to want it as much as Elizabeth Perkins. She came in with her curly hair all pulled up, and she did it. Yes, there was a little Lucy in it, and there was a little Alice Cramden, but basically there was a human inside of it, and like other people who really didn't know how to do it. They were trying to play a cartoon, but she was trying to play a person, and I think that's what grounded it, and thus grounded Fred and grounded our family. Now, Rosie still, she was our number one choice, no doubt about it, but she still had to audition, and she did the scene. She read, it was very funny, and then she grabs the microphone and starts making a direct appeal to Mr. Spielberg, and even begins to sing the overture from Empire of the Sun, and she was hysterical, and we said, how's anybody going to compete with that? Not only did she blow you away doing Betty, but then she does 10 minutes of stand-up to boot, and you knew how funny she was. And one of the things Rosie did in the film was that little laugh that Betty used to do, and she latched onto that and punctuated almost every line with that laugh and really turned it into a comedy weapon. And still on her show today, once when things are slow, she'll just look at the audience and go, and they howl. People ask me, how did I get involved with the Flintstones? Well, other than being a fan since I first saw it when I was 8 years old, I was a sitcom writer-producer who began directing films, Problem Child 2 and Beethoven, and over a few years leading up until I first met on the movie, I'd always hear that they were looking for a Flintstone script. I believe for 5 years, maybe 6 different individuals and teams had taken a shot at the script, and I guess none of them were satisfactory. And so word had trickled down to me again that they were looking for someone to do a rewrite from a story they had. And my agent had called up and said, might they be interested in just meeting with me? And the writing assignment had been taken, but much to my surprise, they were interested in meeting to direct the film. And so that led to a meeting with Steven Spielberg and Kathy Kennedy. And I started the meeting talking like this and was pretty nervous. They were on a lunch break from Jurassic Park. And finally I said to myself, well, you better pull yourself together. You're going to blow this. And I think I gave a pretty good accounting of myself as someone with a strong background in family comedy and interest in retro television. I'd also done the new Leave It to Beaver series with the original cast of that. And my Flintstone collection, my interest in animation culture, I think allowed them to give me a shot. And then we began work, and it was great, the support that I received as someone who'd never worked on this scale, to have Bruce Cohn and Colin Wilson, both who are people who Mr. Spielberg relies on, to get things done and get them done right for him. And he was kind enough to lend me their services and support throughout the whole process. And so we put together just a great crew, a lot of people who they'd used for a long time. And then adding people like David Newman. We met a lot of composers on the film and listened to their takes and stuff. But David was the one who really seemed the most connected and the most excited about the possibility of doing this specifically. And that energy and passion, that's what I always look for in the people that we brought together on this. And I think that's a lot of the reason we were successful. If I try to do anything, I try and create an atmosphere where people are comfortable, where people are having a good time, in order, I hope, to do their best work and give them an opportunity to try and go a little bit beyond what they might normally ask to do and involve people more and use them and use what they have to offer to help improve the film. You always hear film as a collaborative medium. I hope to make it a highly collaborative medium. And part of that, is with the actors, giving them room to improvise, to go with the moment, to be spontaneous and try and capture the spontaneity, the fun that we would have in discovering the material in readings, in our 2 weeks of rehearsals, and recreating, getting that energy going so it's right there on the screen where it counts. Now, coming up is one of my favorite CG shots of Dino lying on his back. Hard to get him to walk, easy to get him to lie down. And at the same time, you'll find Elizabeth Taylor inside the house, bound and gagged here, when Russell Bobbitt, our prop man, came up to her and said, "I'm going to have to tie you up now, Miss Taylor." She looked at him and said, "Oh, men have been trying to do that to me for 30 years. And now you'll see John will look around and then step right over his mother-in-law for Dino. And you can see what I really think is the most lifelike CG shot of Dino. And he just looks great. The way you just see the skin moving as he breathes and stuff, and the paws taking the muzzle off. I did a terrible thing during that scene. Elizabeth Taylor was lying there on the floor rehearsing, and I did a Columbo thing with John. "Oh, just one more thing," and turned around, stepped right on her foot, and boy, did she scream. And you can imagine how I felt, like the stupidest man who's ever lived. And she went away for about 10 minutes and came back, and she was leaning on somebody, limping terribly. And I said, "Oh, what have I done?" And then she started laughing. She was putting me on. She was fine, and gave me a bad moment there. So you can see in the scenes coming up some really inventive puppeteering here. Once again, using all the different models of the bird. The one with wires directly into it that went down, say, through Fred's shirt when he was sitting on Fred's shoulder. And then there's one where just the head moved, but not the body, for when he's holding him like this. Then, upcoming when he puts him on the ground, that's a rod puppet. And the rods that operate the feet and the wings were then removed on the computer. And later we will even see shots where the bird is connected to like a arm, and the puppeteer is operating the bird through the arm. And for instance, when he runs and takes off, so you're running with the bird's feet touching the ground, and then you raise the rod, and the people who are flapping his wings are flapping his wings, and you make it look like he's flying. And then somehow we shot it over with nothing in the frame, and the computer guys took that information and erased the puppeteers. And you can't tell. It's just amazing. This was really fun to build. Michael Lantieri really did a job in designing this whole apparatus for building homes. And everything worked here. Just a huge job, complicated by the fact that it had to be moved several times. As I said, the water kept rising. Now, this entire sequence, from the time the boys appear at dawn in the long shot in the quarry until the end of the film, took over 10 days, I believe, out of our schedule just to do those pages. See, now that rock is actually hung from a crane and swung on the crane arm, and then the wire is painted out. Those are pyrosil boulders, and the teeth of the spinning wheel actually works. This is a stunt man on a wire off a crane running, and what we did right there where Rick hit the wall and fell was we laid him down on the ground, and he just flopped down onto his stomach, and then we pulled him out by his feet, and then just straightened out the camera so it appeared to be a vertical rather than horizontal action. That's John doing his own stunts, and Rick too. And here's the shot I talked about. So really, operating that is a puppeteer who has been erased. Now, the only other sequence that took nearly this long was shooting the main and end titles for about a total of 45, 50 seconds, I believe. It took nearly 2 weeks of our time. And each frame from the cartoon had been analyzed in great detail by everyone and tried to duplicate it. Now, here's a great thing. In our thought bubble, Fred imagines Elizabeth Taylor in the dinosaur's mouth, and it's the same sort of trick that we used with Rick hitting the mountain. The Elizabeth Taylor is standing up straight, and the dinosaur's head is horizontal and tilted 45 degrees, and she's just inside the Jaws standing still, swinging her arms and screaming. And, even this, though, was kind of uncomfortable for her, even though she managed to do a little dancing for us there. Her hips were very sore through this, and not long afterward, she had a hip replacement operation.
Will there be anything else, Mr. Flintstone?
No, Miss Stone, take the rest of the day off.
Look at John acting with every inch of his body, his feet, his face, his arms. Just throwing everything he has into it all the time. And once again, the big rock on the crane. And we really did blow this sucker up. And here got hundreds and hundreds of gallons of concrete involved in making this huge holding tanks. Kyle in this scene, really impressed me. Number one, his dedication to this job, to taking the licks, doing a lot of big physical stuff. And I think for him, just to be in this movie, to be in a comedy was such a relief for him. To have fun and push it a little bit and use that chin of his to comedic advantage. Great fall by Kyle there. And that one had to knock the wind out of you no matter who you are. Now we shot this drop here in a different quarry where we had a big 85-foot fall and dropped it right on the camera and then put the camera on a rope, on a winch, and descended it very quickly towards Kyle to get that.
But I've graciously decided to give you all the credit since it's your name on all the requisition forms.
Mr. Flintstone?
And please notice in the film that any opportunity I had to show our Riccasso, as seen in Daily Plaza in Chicago by the real Pablo Picasso, I did. And but not even the Chicago critics, who I thought might notice it, even took note. And speaking of critics, a lot of people say that the critics didn't like the Flintstones. That really isn't true. The New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, I remember very clearly, Julie Solomon, their film critic, called the film an imaginative piece of American pop art. And I couldn't ask for anything more if I was going to ask for someone to say something nice than that. I think that in that it was recognized as a piece of entertainment. This isn't brain surgery. We weren't going for the dramatic Oscars and stuff here. We were trying to bring a very simple cartoon to life and keep the simplicity of the spirit, even though it's a huge canvas that we drew on. So some critics didn't like it. You can't expect them to like everything. But, I think that the reception from the public, really made up for any critical shortcomings that any of us might have felt. And the approval that we felt from the people we were working for, Steven Spielberg and Kathy Kennedy and Universal Studios, more than made up for a couple nasty things that critics, even the ones from your hometown papers, say about you. It had been 5 years since Steven Spielberg first looked at John Goodman on the set of Always and said to him, "You should be Fred Flintstone," and began to acquire the rights from Hanna-Barbera for a film version, and gone through all the scripts and all the false starts. At one time, I even heard Richard Donner had been set to direct the film. And through all the different drafts, and Mr. Spielberg always persevered and wanted the film made. And finally, in the spring of '94, we wrapped it up. David Newman did a great job of balancing the simplicity of the music that we grew up with and marrying it with more sophisticated style and a larger instrumentation. In the original theme song, that's 4 people singing Meet the Flintstones. For the film to beef it up, to give it more power, we ended up, after recording one with 4 people, we ended up with a chorus of 17 people singing the opening and end credits to give it the power to match the imagery that we'd created. So anyways, the final sound mix lasted for 10 long, difficult days, and after 20 months, we were all very tired, but very proud of the film. And I just want to take the opportunity to once again thank everyone who helped me make it, and especially to everyone at Amblin, and Bruce Cohn, Colin Wilson, Kent Beta, and my family as well. So now we launch into a shot-by-shot recreation of the classic end credit. There you see the Bronto neck is actually on rails and rolls along. That's how we make it move. Into Rock Donald's drive-in. A lot of problem finding a girl as skinny as the one in the cartoons. The giant ribs tips over. There goes CG, Kitty, and Dino. Now this was done on stage here. You see that's just a painted Flintstone out in the background, matching the action with Dino coming in and John timing his look to where Kitty should pass him. And then I just love the attitude John has. It's exactly like the cartoon. Get a little chance for him to scratch, and then boom, pull those curtains and put in the creature. John shoves himself out the door, and we drop back much further than they could in the cartoon show. And thank you for listening. Hope you've had a yabba dabba do time.
Sunset Bedrock. I met this kid named Fred, he didn't wear no socks. He had a part-time gig at the gravel pit slinging rocks. Said he was into hip-hop, could kick a style, I told him go for it. Bust a verse, said what you think, I said your style is prehistoric. Sound stuck in the Stone Age, you're still using a hammer and chisel, carving out your lyrics on stone pages. It's about time you heard a style from a real before the wheel rapper. Said it orphaned, he said yabba dabba do. Then it got the truth, the fella suddenly standing in the middle of a crowd of cave dwellers saying, tell us how you flip the script and rip. I guess busy one time, they said, yeah, I'm hip. Didn't know the time, didn't know about fly, so I had to show a caveman how to rock. I showed a caveman how to rock. I showed a caveman how to rock.
Barney Rubble, Fred Flintstone,